Did you know that during the Crimean War, more than 4,000 healthy soldiers died due to diseases than in battle? Medical staff and hospitals were overwhelmed. The British government had no clue how to lessen casualties. Britain kept sending more soldiers to battle, only to have them die in hospitals due to diseases. A dramatic discovery by a nurse finally solved the mystery. By using mathematics, not medicine, this nurse saved thousands of lives. Find out how she did it in this video. This is Angela, and today we are going to learn how statistics can save lives. If you were a soldier during the Crimean War in 1854, you would have had more chances of dying from typhus, typhoid, cholera, and dysentery than from battle wounds. This was what British nurse Florence Nightingale found out during her first winter in the Scutari Hospital, where 4,077 soldiers died. Nightingale gathered data on their cause of deaths and discovered that 10 times more soldiers died from preventable diseases than from battle wounds. The overworked medical staff was unable to properly care for the wounded soldiers. Hospitals were dirty, overcrowded, and poorly ventilated. Medicine was in short supply, hygiene was neglected, and mass infections were common. Nightingale used statistics to convince the British government that more soldiers were dying because of the unhygienic hospital than the war. 6 months later, the British Sanitary Commission flushed the sewers and improved ventilation. Statistics and sanitary reforms reduced the death rate from 43% to 2%, saving thousands of lives. Data as information, and statistics is a tool for analyzing that data. When data is collected and interpreted, important decisions with profound effects could be made. Think of the dramatic effect that collecting and analyzing data had on the health of the soldiers. The dramatic improvements in sanitary conditions would not have happened if this data had not been collected and studied. But just as correctly interpreted data has its benefits, misinterpreted data could lead to misfortune. Let's look at the data that Florence Nightingale collected from the Scutari Hospital. In the following table, we can see the number of British soldiers who died at the Scutari Hospital from April 1854 to March 1855. Before we can analyze this data, we need to organize it so it is easier to understand. We do this by finding 6 different measurements of data. Mean. Mean is another word for average. To find the average number of soldiers who died between April 1854 and March 1855 in the Scutari Hospital, we need to add all the deaths and divide by the number of months. In this case, we find that the average number of deaths in a year is 994 soldiers. We can calculate the average army strength the same way to get an average of 28,006 soldiers. The death of 994 soldiers would be equivalent to about 3.55% of the army strength. You could say that figure could be an acceptable loss, but is it? Digging deeper, Florence Nightingale gathered this data on the cause of deaths. This tells us that on average, 930 soldiers die from preventable diseases, while only 65 soldiers die as a result of battle wounds. With 93.6% of the deaths due to poor sanitation and hygiene, is this still an acceptable loss? Median. The median of a set of data is the number in the middle. To find the median, we need to line up all the data from lowest to highest and then take the middle number. The list of data is an even number, then there will not be a middle number to use for the median. In that case, take the average of the 2 middle numbers. That will be your median. In this case, the median of total deaths would be 849. Range. An Another measure that is helpful when we analyze data is the range. If all the months had equal number of deaths, then the range would be 0. In this case, the number of deaths go from 1 to 2,844, leaving us with the range of 2,843. The mode in the set of data is the number that occurs the most. In our data on the number of deaths, 11 occurs twice and is therefore the mode. The frequency table can show us how many soldiers died from disease and wounds at a glance. By adding all the numbers in each column, we get the following totals. A total of 11,156 soldiers died from preventable diseases in the Scutari Hospital, while only 772 soldiers died from battle wounds. Relative frequency. This is a very important measurement number that allows us to make estimates. To find the relative frequency, start by copying the frequency table. Then, make a fraction, comparing the cause of deaths by category to the total number of soldier deaths in the Scutari Hospital during that period, which is 11,928. Lastly, turn that fraction into a decimal. Now that decimal is the relative frequency. Let's say we want to estimate the total number of deaths in another hospital due to preventable diseases during that same time period. If 20,000 soldiers died in that hospital, multiplied by the relative frequency 0.935, we get 18,700 soldiers who most likely died from preventable diseases in that hospital. These estimations aren't guaranteed to be accurate, but they usually are pretty close. Nightingale used these figures to convince the British government to provide sanitary reform to decrease the number of unnecessary deaths. And true enough, deaths from preventable diseases did decrease the succeeding year. Statistics can save lives. In order to get through today's COVID-19 pandemic, government leaders must heed the warnings that arise from the data analyzed by medical practitioners and statisticians to guide them in effective decision making.
I just wanna let you know that I could never let you go.